This is question number 36 from the August 2014 Algebra 1 Regent. A school is building a rectangular soccer field that has an area of 6,000 square yards. The soccer field must be 40 yards longer than its width. Determine algebraically the dimensions of the soccer field in yards. So whenever we have a word problem like this, we always want to first draw a picture. So here is going to be the soccer field. What do we know about the soccer field? The area is going to be 6,000 square yards. And the soccer field must be 40 yards longer than its width, but we don't know the width, so let's use x to represent the width. And we know that whatever the width is, the length is going to be 40 yards longer than that. So that's x plus 40. And how are we going to solve this for x? Well, we have an equation that relates area, length, and width, and that is the area is always equal to the length times the width for any rectangle. And we have the area. Let's plug in what we know. We have the area, which is 6,000. 6,000 is equal to the length, which is x plus 40, times the width, which is x. So let's solve this. We're going to distribute the x. 6,000 is equal to x times x is x squared, 40 times x is 40x. Whenever we have a quadratic equation, we want to have everything on one side and 0 on the other side, so we're going to subtract 6,000 from both sides. This is equal to x squared plus 40x minus 6,000, and this whole thing is equal to 0. We can either solve this by factoring, by completing the square, or using the quadratic formula. Factoring would take a while because we would have to find factors of negative 6,000 to add up to positive 40. We could use completing the square, or we could use quadratic formula. Let's use the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a, and let's plug in what we know. So x is equal to negative b, in this case is positive 40, plus or minus the square root of b, which is 40 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which in this case is negative 6,000. This whole thing is over 2 times a, which is 1. So x is equal to negative 40 plus or minus the square root of 40 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 6,000. Let's just solve that whole thing on the calculator. So we have 40 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 6,000, and enter. That's 25,600. And this whole thing is over 2 times 1, which is just 2. So let's simplify this. X is equal to negative 40 plus or minus the square root of 25,600. Is that a perfect square? Let's check on the calculator. The square root of 25,600 is 160. It is a perfect square. So we have negative 40 plus or minus 160 over 2. So let's set this up into two separate problems. We have x is equal to negative 40 plus 160 over 2. And we also have x is equal to negative 40 minus 160 over 2. Negative 40 plus 160 is 120. 120 over 2 is 60. Negative 40 minus 160 is negative 200. Negative 200 over 2 is negative 100. Since we're solving here for dimensions, for length and width, we can't have a negative number, so we're going to reject this answer, negative 100. So what we have is x is equal to 60. Now let's go back to our question. That means that since we used x to represent the width is equal to 60. 60, and they tell us the dimension is in yards. And the length, we know, is x plus 40, which is x is the width. So the length is the width, which is 60, plus 40, which is equal to 100. So the length is equal to 100 yards. And those are the dimensions of the soccer field.